Okay, so very good afternoon to everyone. First of all, thank you so much to all of you to allocate this time of your day amongst your busy schedule to come and hear us and come and hear about a very important topic, which is influence. Influence currently is something which at times we are not aware, but we do or we say a lot of our things is in and around it surrounds that entire word of influence when it comes to corporate or personal life anywhere we are always trying our best to influence somebody or our managers, our boss, our, I think, corporate management. At times we have a lot of things to say. So influence, what I mean is it has a lot of importance that it plays for us to make sure that what we are thinking, it also happens, and it happens in a way where it is able to create a very good impact for both parties. Like in influence, it is always two parties, the one who is trying to influence and the one who is the person you are trying to influence. I'll take some time and I'll actually talk about Quality Austria Central Asia. I'll just take 2 minutes of our time. So, welcome everybody to a very insightful session. Yes. So, welcome everybody to a session where we are going to talk about the persuasion techniques and how to ethically influence anybody in a setup of corporate culture. This is a leading platform which is partnered with Quality Austria Central Asia. We have our impactful study by Mr. Dr. Robert Cialdini from Cialdini Institute, and they have partnered with us. And for India, Quality Austria is the organization that's leading this entire training module. And Quality Austria has been in the certification and training business for almost 15 years now. We have close to 2,000 plus clients, very esteemed clients of us, and we have over 3,000 employees who are our technical service providers, and they always ensure that all our clients get the best quality of output wherever they require. Now to talk a little more, QACA has been, we have multiple accreditations, including NABCB, QCI, IRCA, and because of these accreditations, we are being enabled to provide these certifications and training modules to our clients. And I'm very happy to say that QACA is currently one of the fastest growing and the leading service provider in terms of certification and inspection and training. We are present and we are catering to almost a lot of industries, including telecom, automotive, built environment, and manufacturing, government, petrochemical. I mean, you name it, and I think our entire team will always have certain kind of quality parameter to be added to that industry. We also are functioning for a coal sector, where Coal India Limited is one of our esteemed partners. So before we start this webinar, I just want to give you a little briefing about what are the steps. Number one, this webinar will be for an hour. So most of you will not be able to unmute yourself because we want the content of the webinar to be first listened to. We also have a Q&A section open for you. So if you have any questions, you can always put it up in the Q&A section. At the end of this webinar, we will unmute you and we will address those questions. Also, I wholeheartedly request all of you that if you can please switch on your cameras. The first thing when you are switching on that camera, it is also to show a respect to the person who is the speaker here, because he himself has invested this time to enlighten you about this great topic. So it becomes a very good communication and two-way communication. So I request whosoever it is possible for, please switch on your video cameras. I can see Devesh doing it. Thank you so much, Devesh. Anybody else? It'll be really kind enough for you to switch on the camera. Now, without wasting much more time, I would introduce our speaker for the day. We have Mr. Arabalu Venkataram. Uh, uh, Mr. Venkataram is somebody who is like the guiding star. With all the interactions I've had with Venkat sir in the last 2 years, I think he's somebody who will always have an answer to your problem. He has headed a very reputed organization, which is the BSI, and he has created that entire setup. He has made sure that BSI is one of the highest standard organization you can ever name about. And today he is here to enlighten all of us on the topic of influence and persuasion, and how we can actually persuade and influence somebody to create a very win-win situation for both the parties. Keeping in mind that influence is a very critical aspect in today's business and personal uh, life. So handing over it to you, Venkat sir.
Thank you, Priyasha, and a very warm welcome to all the participants in today's webinar. It's going to be a very short webinar. It's just 1 hour. This topic is fairly deep and massive, but at least it'll help you to think differently so that in the future you can actually start planning and preparing to use the concepts that I'm going to share with you in a different way. So Priyash has already told you, Quality Austria Central Asia in India and the Cialdini Institute have partnered to form the Cialdini Institute India, Bharat, and that is bringing the entire knowledge and expertise of the psychology of persuasion to you in India. And the good news is that we are able to provide you exactly the same content, but then we are able to deliver this at India-specific prices and so on. But anyway, let me go on. So once again, welcome to all of you, a very warm welcome. And I'm sure that at the end of this 1 hour, your minds will be excited, something will change, and you will be able to take back something with you. Um, I will have some slides which I'm going to share with you. At the end of my presentation, I will also take some question and answers. So the way that you can post your questions on the chat box, that would be so then we will know what questions have been posed, and therefore we will provide the answer. However, you can also raise up your arm. There's a small toggle with an arm up. And if you raise that, we will know that you have a question and we will reach out to you. So basically, we're talking about persuasion. In our lives, we are all the time persuading others to do something, to act in a particular way, to behave in a particular way. We do that throughout our lives. But what we must understand is that in today's world, more and more, yeah, like what's happening in this meeting itself, we are digitally connected. Uh, you are not sitting in front of me, but in a way, you are sitting in front of me. But if we do not have this human connection in this kind of a meeting that we are having today, you will miss a lot. And that is why ethical persuasion becomes even more relevant and important today than it ever was. So let's dive a little bit into the topic of ethical persuasion. There was a research which was done by a very famous person called Daniel Pink. Daniel Pink is very well known, and he's an author of several books, highly respected. And this research was very interesting because what he found was uh, that 41% of our time is actually spent in influencing or persuading others. Yeah. And that's quite a lot of time that we spend each day. Now, when you look at this time, let's have a kind of a quick calculation around. Let's supposing we have a company of about 100 employees, not a very large company. Uh, so out of the 100 employees, we have about 20 people in sales. Uh, Assuming that there are 20 lakhs, 10 lakhs per year average salary for the salespeople. So the overall cost of these people's salary per year is going to be 2 crores. The rest 80 people are non-sales people, could be managers, could be production people, etc., and or front-ending executives. So let's say an average, including the managers to the lower paid employees, is about 15 lakhs is the average. Into 80, that brings it to 12 crores. Now, 41%, you remember the 41% of James Pink? So Daniel Pink. So the 41% of 12 crores is actually coming up to 4 crore 92 lakhs. Sizable amount of money. Now, a salesperson is persuading, they're trying to sell, and so they're trying to use persuasion all the time in their uh, 8-hour working day. So now if you add 4 crore 92 to the 2 crores of the salespeople, uh, what you're seeing is the total business is actually spending 6 crore 92 lakhs per year if for a very tiny small company of 100 employees. So when we're talking about persuasion, we are really talking of very, very large financial numbers they're impacting. But so far, we have not been paying attention to that kind of impact to the organization. Now, let me talk to you about the practitioners of persuasion. Now, when we're looking at the practitioners of persuasion, three types of persuasion practitioners come into our mind. One are the bunglers. Bunglers are those people who who know the topic, very, very sound in knowledge and everything. But when they're actually trying to persuade somebody to act or do something uh, in the way that they want them to do, yeah, they don't do it, and they lose. And bunglers are people who would actually lose. Then we have smugglers, and smugglers are smart people, and and I'll give you some examples of these, so don't worry about it. So smugglers are the people who are very clever, and they're so clever and so smart that they fool others, and they make the other person lose, and the smuggler wins at any cost. Right? And the third type of persuaders are basically sleuths, or they are detectives. And these are the people who go around hunting for what really works in persuasion. What are the techniques that can be used? But they also want the persuaded to win, and they, as a persuader, will also, be winning. So let me share with you a story of this is a true story. Dr. Robert Cialdini, who actually is the godfather of influence. And he, in 1985, uncovered the principles of influence, which he shared in a book in 1985. So it's 40 years ago that he wrote this book. And ever since then, this particular book has sold 7 million copies worldwide. So it is one of the bestsellers around the world. And how did Dr. Robert Cialdini stumble onto this? Because what he suddenly realized was he himself was being influenced and persuaded to do things that he wouldn't want to do. So, like if he was sitting at home one day, and then there's a knock on the door, he opens the door, and you know, there's a salesman. And 15 minutes later, he goes back to his sofa, sits down, and he just wonders, why on earth does he now have a different service provider for electricity? There was nothing wrong with the existing electricity supplier to his home, but then some salesman has persuaded. And he realized that this was happening to him. So he did a research, extensive amount of research. Based on that research, he wrote his book, and he came out in 1985 with 6 principles of influence. And of course, later on, he realized that there was a seventh principle, which are fundamental, which are universal, applies to all people, humanity across the world, nationalities, race, ethnicity, religions. They are all neutral to that. So it's universally applicable principles of influence. So but in 2015, he uncovered also one more principle, which is the 7 principles that we see today amongst us. So uh, one day he was in Australia and he was giving a lecture, which Dr. Robert Cialdini travels all across the world and speaks to audiences. So he was in Australia, in Sydney, and he was giving a talk. And right in the front of him, there was a senior executive, and he actually was the owner of a small software company. And he was sitting in front of him. But he was feeling very, very uncomfortable. And Dr. Robert Cialdini saw that this man was feeling very disturbed. So he was wondering what's happening to this man. So he asked, is there something wrong with you? Uh, so the software executive, what he says is, yeah, you see, what happened was that this particular company was dealing, providing software solutions to others. So one day, somebody from Melbourne called him and said there was a problem. So he himself, along with 2 technicians, they got into a plane, went from Sydney to Melbourne, and they solved the problem within 24 hours. So the CEO of that company, uh, yeah, she was a lady, and she said, "Oh, thank you so very much. That was wonderful. I mean, you solved our problem, and so on. So thank you very much." And you know what this man said? This man said to the CEO, said, "Oh, yeah, forget about it. We will do this for everybody." Yeah, but also not only that, and he added, yeah, and I love to travel to Melbourne. Okay, now the CEO completely was surprised at what is this man saying. Yeah, like it was nothing. So what actually happened was, unknowingly, unwittingly, this person who has done such a big job, I mean, he really did a big favor in traveling to Melbourne himself, not just send some technicians over, but he himself traveled, solved the customer's problem, which is great. But when he was being thanked for it, he made the mistake. Uh, he made the mistake of not acknowledging the thanks and just brushing it away. And you know what? He lost a lot. And when Dr. Robert Cialdini was giving the lecture and he was talking about a principle of reciprocity, this man suddenly realized, how he had stupidly, made a mistake. So that's what he said. Oh, it was no big deal, no problem. We do it for everybody. Yeah. But also he said, oh, we love to come to Melbourne, so yeah. And what was the underlying message? Yeah. The underlying message was, oh, yeah, nothing. Just don't think about it. Yeah. And that's a mistake. And that's a tremendously large mistake. Yeah. So what could this executive have actually said? Yeah, had he been trained in these principles of influence, he would not have been a bungler. He bungled up an opportunity. Why? Because he has done a favor to the company by himself traveling and solving the problem very efficiently. But when that favor was being complemented, he neutralized the favor. Yeah. And that is why he realized that he made a mistake. So what should he have said? Yeah. What he should have said to the CEO, the lady, is, of course, we would do this for you. You're such an important client of mine. Uh, we would do this for you. That's what long-term partners do for each other. You know, that would have created a relationship which would have been very useful to this software company. You know, just see how small things we do that. Many times somebody does a favor to us, and or we do a favor to somebody, and if the person says thank you, oh, don't think about it, uh, that was nothing. And what happens is we lose the principle of reciprocity. And I will just talk to you about reciprocity very shortly. So Bangla does that. Now, but of course, the uh, it's very, very important that human connection. So let's get into the smuggler. Now, yeah, supposing you walk into Reliance Digital, right? You're looking for HP computer, a laptop, and you walk in there, and you have a configuration of, you know, uh, yeah, 1 TB of a hard drive, and you need, 32 MB of yeah, RAM and so on. Yeah, you have a specification, right? And you need a screen size of the, and you come along and you find just that perfect machine, and then you see, oh, it's on display, and it says, and then on the display it says, uh, it's at a special rate. Yeah. So um, now the salesperson comes along to you, and remember one thing is most salespeople all across the world are incentivized for the sale. So he would like to sell you this machine. So he sells you the machine and you buy it immediately because that's the last piece is what you're told. That's the very last piece. Now, when you think that that's the last piece and that's your absolute brilliant ideal machine, what would you do? You say, okay, I buy it right now. Okay. And you buy it. Yeah. And the next day you're back in the mall, and then you say, let me go and I want to go and pick up earpods, and so you walk in and you find exactly another machine, exactly the same, you know, where you picked up that machine from. What do you think was happening? Would you trust Reliance Digital? As a company, would you trust them to be fair? No. Why? Because it was an unethical representation of what was not scarce. It was not the last piece. Yeah. But the sales guy wanted to sell you, and he used the technique of scarcity, which is also one of the principles. Yeah. So those are smugglers. The company loses. So if unknown to the Reliance management, such kind of things activity are happening. And by the way, these are happening all around us. And I have got personal examples of where I was completely fooled by people, whether it was buying a washing machine or whether it's buying, any kind of thing. It's always people try to fool you by using principles unethically. So those are smugglers. Not a good idea, and never recommend that. Then, of course, we do have the third ones are the sleuths who look for the right principle of influence to be applied in the correct manner, and so that both the person being influenced and the influencer both are winning. And that's the most important part because, we got to be thinking of influence, in an ethical manner. We shouldn't be thinking in terms of short term, quick buck. We should be looking at this to become part of the strategic way that companies operate. The cultures that we build into the company should be using principles of influence in the ethical manner. So here are two men. One, of course, you recognize is Barack Obama. The other person you won't recognize, of course, most of you won't. His name is Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman is a Nobel laureate. But of course, out here, he is being given the Medal of Honor, the highest civilian medal in the United States for the work that he did, especially during Barack Obama's campaign when he won for the first time. His campaign was assisted by psychologists and sociologists, and Daniel Kahneman and Dr. Robert Cialdini, uh, Dr. Gregory Neidert. They were very instrumental in helping, you know, design the campaign itself. Daniel Kahneman was a Nobel laureate. There is no Nobel Prize for psychology, for social sciences, but there is he why did he get a Nobel Prize? He got it for economics, because this whole psychology of persuasion has a direct relationship with economics, decision making, and so on. So his work, although it is based on psychology, was rewarded through the economics uh, Nobel Prize, right? Because of its impact. So what did Daniel Kahneman find out was that in a human brain, yeah, and he simplified it by calling it system one way of thinking and system two way of thinking. And what was the system two is the thinking brain, system one, which is an intuitive brain, which works automatically, which is fast, which is, we do it unconscious. We don't make a conscious decision. This is for everyday decisions, but we also make errors when we use the system one. System two is when we think, we use our brain, analyze, and then determine and decide what to do, the decision making. And these decision makings are slow, they're conscious, they're effortful, they are related for mainly complex decisions, but they're also very reliable. Now, what he also did find out was that system one decisions, when he did his first research, he realized that 90% of the decisions we make today are based on system one, right? That means these are automatic. Can you believe 90% of the decisions? And by the way, we make roughly on an average 35,000 decisions each day. 35,000 decisions. And his research said we make automatic decisions 90% of the time. Now, if we make 90% of decisions without thinking, it'll come to us as a surprise. And what he said was that basically system one runs the show. And if you want to do anything, it is that part of the brain that you should try to control. And incidentally, uh, more recently, it is found out that 95% of the decisions are made using system one, not system two. Even sometimes what happens is some very complicated decisions like buying a house. We think we have, we want a bedroom like this, we need a kitchen like this, we want it facing like this, and we do all those things. Uh, and eventually the final decision is made. You'll be surprised. It is not with system two. The final decision could very well be based on system one. Some one small little thing which has triggered you, and your brain goes boom. That's it. I want it. But uh, the surprising part is that when we make a decision, even such a big major decision, using system one, uh, uh, what happens in our brain is the system two actually endorses that, no, 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 this was made with conscious thinking, and we keep fooling ourselves that the final decision was made, very carefully, well thought through, and so on. So, all right. So, but of course, Daniel Kahneman, he always recognized that the application of these psychological principles of influence and persuasion uh, has been outlined by none other than Dr. Robert Cialdini. And he said, that's the man. Dr. Cialdini is the man who can help anybody to use these techniques. Here is Dr. Robert Cialdini. Of course, he's much older now. He's a professor in Arizona State University, and that's the book that he wrote. 7 million copies of this book have sold, and it's a bestseller. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. But of course, he's written other books, and there's 10 million copies of all his books have actually been sold. He's trusted by uh, you know, big corporates like IBM and Coca-Cola and Google, etc. But also if you're saying that universities like Harvard University or Stanford, they also trust him. And then you can see uh, big consultants like KPMG, London Business Forum, World Economic Forum, they also trust Dr. Robert Cialdini. So he comes with some very, very strong credentials. And when the top 100 CEOs were asked, what is the best business book of all time? Yeah. And this included Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos. They voted for 3 years in a row that the best business book of all times is the book Influence, the Power of Persuasion. Yeah. So there is some good there. So what are those 7 principles that I keep talking about? The first one is reciprocity. Second is liking. The third is unity. The fourth is social proof. The fifth is authority. Sixth is scarcity, consistency. And the seventh is scarcity. So those are the universal. It applies across the world. But before I go a little bit deeper into each of those principles, I'm not going to be able to cover all the seven principles today. I'll only cover three of them. But I want you to understand Dr. Gregory Neidert, also another psychologist. What he uncovered was that human beings initially would like to establish first a relationship. And you take all interactions, all our human interactions, first is establish a relationship. The next thing is reduce uncertainty. Yeah, reduce all the things that we don't know. And the third is get motivated to act on it. So this is the sequence. And then what he did was, because they are colleagues, he fitted the 7 principles. So for relationship, we have reciprocity, the principle of liking, and unity. They come under building a relationship. When we talk about uncertainty, to remove uncertainty, the principles of social proof and authority come into play. And the last two, consistency and scarcity, make people act, take this thing. Today, uh, because it's a very quick session, I will have to be covering the principle of reciprocity, liking, and unity only. So these are the kind of audiences that Dr. Robert Cialdini has. You can see this one. It's huge. An auditorium of 1,000 people or more. Right? Now, he talks about something, and we talk about influence, and we always promote something which we say is called a small big. A smallest change that will have the biggest impact on your success. That's a small big. And these principles of influence are those levers. You know the lever principle? With the smallest amount of force, you can lift a large load. That is the lever principle. So small, big are levers. It's the smallest change that we can have the largest and the biggest impact on your personal success. So we come to the first one, the building the relationship. Very, very interesting. And this is most relevant today. And it is Albert Einstein who's been credited with this statement. I fear the day that technology surpasses human interaction, the world will have a generation of idiots. Now we talk about AI, we talk about machine learning. We say that people are going to be replaced by bots and robots and whatnot and so on and so forth. And we keep wondering, and that's absolutely rubbish, because if it were to happen, then all of us will be morons, idiots, stupids. That's what we'll become, and that's not going to happen. So we will continue to be human beings, uh, and we will have a very different. Uh, but first things first is having the relationship. Uh, So without the relationship, yeah, nothing ever works. Yeah. If you're a manager, you're telling your direct report to go and do something. You're a salesperson. You're telling somebody to buy something from you. You are a front end executive, and somebody comes to you with a customer complaint, and you have to address that person. All these are opportunities to use the principles of influence, use the small big techniques. And by the way, this topic of influence is taught in MBA colleges, especially the IIMs, IMT Ghaziabad, and some of the better known MBA colleges are already have this as a subject. But this subject is not really taught by experts like me. It's taught by professors who just have read the book and then they give their interpretation. But this is where we're bringing this to you. Why? Because if you start making people realize how to use this ethically in the correct way, it can help to manage people in and manage your customers and so on in a much better manner. So speaking about reciprocity, what is reciprocity? People feel obligated to give back when you have given to them first. It can be a gift, it can be a favor, it can be a concession that you gave to somebody, right? And this particular, for instance, let me give you an example of this thing. Um, so supposing you're a manager and a worker comes up to you and says, साहब मुझे छुट्टी चाहिए, 2 घंटे पहले जाना है मुझे, घर पे बहुत बड़ा अर्जेंट काम है, right? एंड यू से प्रोडक्शन चल रहा है तो कैसे जा सकते हो, बड़ा लोड है, आज का टारगेट बहुत बड़ा है, ये है वो है. Now you refuse a person and that person goes away, yeah, very disturbed, unhappy, goes back to the work and on the other hand, you know that it's going to be challenging for you. You got to work around things, but you say to the guy, uh, "Okay, yeah, काम है, but go on. Yeah, we'll manage some." Now that's a favor a manager does, and you know what is going to happen? The principle of reciprocity will come in. That worker, without any hesitation, is going to give back so heavily back to the manager that it's going to surprise the manager completely. People feel obligated to give back to you. Do we use these techniques in a knowingly? Some people use it because they're born into it, or they've seen some of their senior managers. Most of the time, we end up using command and control. Yeah? Again, command and control, or giving people rewards, using financial incentives. That's what we do. Uh, However, that's not always the most consistent and the best way to get people to work. So, giving you an example of reciprocity. So, in 2007, there was a Hurricane Katrina, which hit New Orleans, and New Orleans was submerged. And then, the people were waiting for aid to reach them. Uh, and what was then discovered was by a person, and his name is Christian Kroner, who's a Dutch man. He realized that aid had not reached 80% of the people. Uh, 80% didn't receive any kind of aid yet. So immediately, Christian Kroner, uh, he organized, funds to be sent from Holland, Netherlands, to New Orleans to help people recover their life. Right? Why did somebody living in a small country, a small little country, uh, a Dutch politician, want to help somebody in New Orleans? And the story begins in 1953. 1953 was the year I was born. In 1953, there was, a good part of Netherlands, Holland, was underwater. You know that Holland is beneath the sea level, and they have dikes, which are embankments, which protect the sea from coming into the houses and into the land and so on. But that time the dikes had given way, and yeah, a good part of Netherlands was underwater. And who do you think helped the people in Netherlands at that time in 1953 were the people in New Orleans. Yeah. And now just see, Christian Kroner would have been a small little boy. He wouldn't probably even remember this flood, or he wouldn't be obligated to repay. But see how he reciprocates, yeah, a favor which was done by the people of New Orleans to the people of Netherlands in their time of need, and so he was obliged to return it back. So as you can see, it binds not only in individuals, the example of a manager and a worker I gave you, but also organizations or societies, countries. It brings, it works across those things. That's the principle of reciprocity. But remember one thing, reciprocity, you have to give first. Yeah, you have to give first a gift, a favor, or a concession. But there's some rules. Uh, uh, what do we talk about people who don't reciprocate? We call them, scroungers, spongers, leeches, ingrates, or deadbeats, or freeloaders. We call them that. Uh, People, yeah, don't like to be called that. So therefore, they there is a universal tendency to reciprocate. And by the way, this particular action of reciprocation comes into play at the age of about 2. Parents teach their babies to learn this uh, process of reciprocation. And it is widely effective all across the world. But there's a golden rule. Instead of saying, who can help me? Change that to, who can I help? How can I help? Is what you should do. Think about reciprocity. What's more persuasive? Is it a gift or is it a reward? So let's have a look at a study which was done by an insurance company. So they sent out a big long survey, and they said that if you complete the survey, you will be given $50. And then with another group of people, the same insurance company sent the same survey, but instead of that, they put in a check of $5 as a gift. And it was given before the survey with no obligation that they have to complete the survey. It is a gift. Look at what was the response. When it is just a promised $50 reward, which is 10 times the gift, 23% completed the survey. But when a check of $5 was enclosed with the survey, 52% people completed the survey. So it's more than double that response rate. Do we understand how powerful this is? Right? So, what's the difference between a gift and a reward? Basically, it is the gifts are given before, they're unconditional, and it opens relationships. Rewards are after, they're conditional, and they close a relationship. Yeah, okay, you got a reward. So you must understand a reward, like an incentive or a bonus, is a reward. It's not a gift. Yeah, it's because it's after, it's conditional, and it closes. So sometimes, if you might be wondering how it works. So I'll give you another examples of reciprocity in actual action. And this was a research which was done in a New York restaurant. And in the New York restaurant, you remember that in America, the waiters don't get paid very highly, but they earn a lot of money uh, through tips. So tipping is a very important part of their salary. So in the study, the first was the group of diners was given 1 mint, yeah, Mentos, for example. Yeah, after they finished their meal, and then they checked what is the kind of tips they got. Yeah, the control group, of course, was nothing was given, no mint was given, and so the control group was also analyzed. Then another group was given 2 mints. Okay, yeah, instead of one, 2 mints were given at the same time. And the third experiment was the waiter comes along, gives 1 mint, then begins to walk away, and then comes back and he says, "Oh, for you nice people, I enjoyed serving you. Uh, Here is one more mint." So these were 3 experiments which were conducted, 4 actually, and then they studied what actually happened to this, right? And what they found was that when there is only one mint, the increase with no mint to one mint was 3.3% increase in tips, right? Which is okay, slight better. When there were two mints, the tipping increased to 14%. Wow, that's good. But when the waiter gave one mint and then went away, then walked back and then gave another mint, the tipping went up by 20%. Now just see what a small action, small big. There is, see, look at the money spent on this. Absolutely nothing. But see the tips which increased to 20% increase in tips, right? So reciprocity, there are three rules to that. It has to be meaningful. The gift has to be meaningful. It has to be customized and it must be unexpected. These are the three golden rules for reciprocity to come in. By the way, there are some intangible gifts. You don't have to give a physical gift, but attention to somebody is a gift. Trust is a gift. Recognition, time, spending time, giving your time, active listening, affection, laughter, advice, genuine interest, empathy. These are all also gifts. Um, yeah. So some tips that I can share with you: say thank you. Thank you to people like the security person who scans you at the airport. Say thank you, right? You don't lose anything. Uh, and by the way, I do this as a routine. The water meter person comes and looks at the water meter yesterday. I said thank you. You know what he says back to me? You're welcome. They're also taught. If you don't say thank you, he won't say anything to you. But just try it. It works beautifully. Yeah. And it works across. Huh? Say thank you to people. Ask yourself, how can I help this person? What can you give first? Do your homework to find out what is meaningful, unexpected, and customized, and what are the intangible gifts that you can give and share with people. Now, to go into the next one, this is about yeah the principle of liking. Now, as you know, I'm going through this at a rocket speed, a breakneck speed. I know we don't have we have just about 12 minutes left. At least let me try to cover up this second principle. Yeah. Now, when we talk about liking, others say yes to us more when we know that we genuinely like them. That's the principle. And when we like people, liking leads to more yeses, more compliance. So how do you like people? So look for similarities. Why? Because we like people who are like us, right? Uh, they dress similar, they look similar, they come from the same part of India, or they come from the same college or the same school. So that includes liking. We like cricket, we like to travel, we like the same fashion, and so on. We like animals, we like dogs. People start to like the other person. Of course, for salespeople, there used to be one rule. And the one rule we used to say, get your customers to like you. And by the way, that rule has changed. And now what salespeople are being taught are show the customers that you genuinely like them. You like them. You're the salesperson. You genuinely like the customers. That's the rule number one for salespeople. Very few people use it to, correctly, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So very, very simple thing. But there is a small big for liking, and it's just a smile. And now, you think it's very small? No, it isn't. It's very huge. Let me share with you something. But also, in the smile, it's the shape of the smile which is so very important. And so there was an experiment which was done for shampoo. And shampoos, there were four identical containers, identical everything. But you can see the first one, there is a smile, a straight line, nothing, and there's a frown. People were asked uh, to choose. And when there was a frown at the bottom, it doesn't look like a smile. 13% chose. When there was nothing on it, 21% neutral, right? And when it was a straight line, 30%. And when there is a smile, just a smile at the bottom, you can see the smile here. And it's no surprise that companies like Amazon, Danone, Yoplait, Thomson, Hasbro, they have a smile. Yeah, part of the logos. Do you see that? And it's done deliberately. Why? Because it shows, and Cialdini Institute also has its own smile. Yeah. And you'll begin to see that. It's because of the liking principle being put into play. Another thing about liking is it's a connection that builds a relationship, and it's a welcome message. On websites, we should welcome people, just like a welcome mat on our front door. Websites are equally the same thing. It's our door. So, Cialdini Institute, we have welcome to the Cialdini Institute. And Bob Cialdini says, I'm very pleased you're considering one of my programs. My team and I will be happy to provide you with everything you need for success. Another small bait for liking is compliments. It costs us nothing complimenting other people. And, there are some examples and then some stories, but I will come and stop here. You can compliment people on desired behavior, and this is very important in companies, in organizations, how to compliment on desired behaviors. Uh, so the if you compliment the right behavior, see, Dr. Robert Cialdini lives in Arizona, and because it's a dry climate there, he has to water the lawn, and so he's got sprinklers, which come on automatically. So he had a paper boy who was delivering newspaper every day, and about 80% of the time it was on the walkway on the path to his house, and so the sprinklers which are on the lawn would not wet the newspaper. So 80% of the time the paper was okay, but 20% of the time the paper was getting wet. So what he did was during Christmas he put a small note and a small gift to the paper boy, and he says, "Thank you, paper boy, for making sure that my paper does not get wet, yeah, and putting it in on my driveway." And so now the paper boy was being complimented on the desired behavior. That means, please put the paper in on my driveway. And you know what? 100% of the time, the paper was always on the driveway and was not getting wet. So compliment people on desired behavior. We normally, what we do, we scold people and we keep telling them of all the negative they do. But when they do the right thing, do we tell them, hey, that was a good thing you did? So you can see a small change in the way a manager relates with his employee can make such a big difference in getting the right behaviors to be followed consistently all the time. The three sentences. Whenever there is a best similarity, bring it to awareness, bring it to the top of the mind, make that happen. Talk about your school, talk about the dog, you talk about where you come from, the neighborhood, and so on. That's the similarity leads to liking. Give a compliment. Oh, I like your office. I like you have a very neat office. Give a compliment. Show your understanding of the situation and your willingness to help and cooperate. That builds liking. But remember, you should always build rapport before you even get into any kind of business. And you must be more interested in the other person than be interesting. And that's one of the mistakes we always, we talk about ourselves. We want to show off and become interesting to the other person. But no, you must be interested in the other person to be truly successful. So do your homework before meeting somebody, identify similarities, and bring it to awareness. Give people a smile. Doesn't matter. It always helps. Can you give people a welcome? Can you give genuine compliments? Can you give persuasive compliments? I've not get into that detail. Can you compliment on the desired behavior? Okay. So we have just about 4 minutes left, but I've got one more principle. Yeah. Now, do you wish to continue for an additional 10 to 15 minutes? If yes, then I will continue with this. Otherwise, I will skip the third principle. Please unmute yourself and tell me.
Yeah, anyone is free to use the chat box as well. Yes, we got a yes, sir, from VK Aurora. Thank you. Anybody else? I think if it's okay with you, we want to continue this for 10 more minutes. Yes,
Yes,
Vidhi.
yes, please continue.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. as I told you, the topic is very, very large, and I can go on for hours on this. The third principle is about unity. Again, it's all about building a relationship. And what is it unity is defined as? People are inclined to say yes to someone they consider one of them. It is one of them. Like, for example, in a family, yeah, we are bound as we. Yeah, we talk about we, and that is an example of unity. So, what happens when we have the principle of unity? There is a blurring of boundaries between self and others. Yeah. Now, when we talk about a company, we talk about working as a team, we talk about working collaboratively, synergistically, etc. And we always want to make that happen. But unfortunately, we struggle and we don't make it happen. Using the principles of influence, using the principle of unity, and understanding how it can be applied to make that team really become a team, to make, how to work collaboratively. Yeah, that's where you can use this, because you can blur the boundaries between yourself and the others. It is the we-ness that we bring into play. So how do we make that happen? In liking, as you see, there's a subtle difference between liking and unity. In liking and unity, the difference is, in liking, we say yes to people who are similar. In unity, we say yes to people who belong to us, who are us, the we part. It's a feeling of togetherness in unity, the we-ness. Right? And what are the benefits of we-ness? We have more cooperation, we are more helpful, and more trust builds up in. So using the principles of unity by people working in a company, in a department, in a team works wonderfully. But how do you make it work? So let me share with you some of the examples of what makes it. So here is the researcher. Now, there's an awful amount of research going on across the world by psychologists, because it's about the human behavior. By the way, let me share with you something about human behavior, because it's a fundamental and a most important thing which one must remember. See, we talk about quality of a product or a service, uh, and we try to improve quality, the product quality, and so on. And then to make a company successful, more profitable, we improve the processes, we make it more efficient, we make it effective, etc., etc. Now, those are the two things which I've done. But what about the people who are running the processes? If we can make the behaviors of the people better, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to have a much better company. You're going to have a much better output. You're not only going to, you'll impact the quality, you'll impact the productivity. Yeah, and that is a third frontier that is the most important. It is the behavior of people within organizations. So a lot of research is going around to make companies much better, and those things, those learnings are used by the best companies in the world. Why do you think Microsoft is a Microsoft? Uh, Why is Air India Air India? Because Air India has not yet reached there. They're not using the behaviors. They're not using psychology to change behaviors, to align teams and to create those teams. And that's why suddenly, you read the next thing in the world, newspapers, is how a passenger was mistreated in an Air India plane, right? Because the behavior of the staff has not been aligned. Psychology is that important. And that is why we talk about influence. Now, talking about this research which was done, it's very fascinating, this particular research. So, uh, people were shown, some people were shown a picture of a person, and then some other people's next group of people were shown two people, a picture of two people, but they were standing apart. And the third group of people was shown two people, but they were standing close to each other, standing together. Then the researcher, a lady, in all the three conditions, you know, pretends to accidentally drop something. And the observers to this research were looking at how many people in each of the groups are going to pick up or help the person who has dropped that particular item, right? So who helped? When there was a picture of just one person being shown, standing alone, 20% of the people helped the researcher pick it up and help the researcher. When the group was shown people standing apart, again only 20% response. But when the group was shown two people standing together, 60%, can you imagine? 60% reached out and helped the researcher when the researcher accidentally pretended to drop something. 60%. Just by showing a picture together. But now here is a fascinating thing. This research was done, yeah, you won't believe this, on people who were just 18-month-old babies. Can you believe that? The research was conducted and it has been repeated several times with exactly the same result. That when babies are shown, human beings standing together, automatically in their minds, the principle of unity comes along. And therefore, when somebody has lost something or dropped something, the unity principle comes into action. What is the small big that we can do when a we relationship already exists? Just what we need to do is we just have to point it out. Yeah, like what we have to do is, yeah, we are in this together. Yeah, this is our problem. Just bring it to awareness, and automatically the other person begins to help and support. Yeah, such a small little thing, bring it to awareness. Then, yeah, you can merely point to the similarity. And this is a research which is done on a campus donation. So people went around, asked for a donation to a social cause. What the researchers also did was, uh, when they asked for the donation, yeah, the person asking for the donation uh, made sure that they show to the person they're requesting, hey, hi, and spoke the same language as them, and they said, yeah, I'm a student here, at the same university. Would you like to donate? And you will be surprised, donations increased by 200% just by showing that I'm a student of the same college. Yeah, Venus. Now, Warren Buffett used this brilliantly. Warren Buffett says, and he repeats this so many times, he says, I will tell you what I would say to my family today if they asked me about Berkshire's future. Because people put money into Berkshire, that's the company that he runs. And they're an investment company. So he takes people's money and he invests somewhere else. If he makes a mistake, people lose their money. So he says, I will tell you what I would say to my family today if they ask me about Berkshire's future. Family, togetherness. Yeah, and he's got literally hundreds of thousands of investors in Berkshire, and people trust him. So that's a very powerful this thing. So what are the words of kinship or brothers in the army, sisterhood, teammates? Don't we use these things? Co-workers, schoolmates, yeah, forefathers, family, mother tongue. These are the kind of things that we use very often when we talk about unity, which we don't realize it. Now, because I'm opening up your mind, you can use it much more effectively. So how can we harness the power of we when we relations don't exist? I told you when they exist, you have to point them out. So how do you do this? For example, when it doesn't exist, one of the way to create we, yeah, act together. Acting together is co-creation. Let's build our solution. Yeah, we have a problem. You work with your client. So come to a solution together. Or you need to make a proposal to somebody. To a big so say, okay, can we work together on creating the tender documents? Co-creation. That brings in unity. Right? Small little things which you can always do. There's one more thing that you can do. Yeah, you can ask for advice. And why? Because if you ask for an opinion, comments, please comment. What's your opinion? You'll always get a critic. You're inviting people to be a critic. But if you ask for an advice, you have them as a partner. One little small little thing that I'm leaving behind with you. Always, if you're asking your boss, don't say, what's your opinion? What do you comment on this? Don't ask for that. Just say, What do you advise, Mr. Boss? And just see what happens. So, what are the tips? Can you identify the Venus and point them out? Can you use the words of kinship like teammates, colleagues? Can you co create together? And can you ask for advice? This brings in the principle of unity into actions. I got so many examples I can tell you, so many little tips. Yeah, but time, 1 hour is always too little to share so much of this very, very interesting topic. But of course, there are 5 ways, 5 simple next steps that I can suggest to continue, using these little things which I shared with you. So if you don't mind, I would suggest you, can you please take out your phones? All you need to do is, if you want a certificate of participation of this 1 hour free of cost, you will have it in your inbox. All you need to do is scan the QR code. So the QR code that you're seeing now, if you scan it, you will land up on our Quality Austria's webpage. You enter your details there, and then I'll make sure that you get a certificate of participation. I do believe Dheeraj is attending this course, so I put in a sample certificate of Dheeraj Saxena attending this course today, April 23rd. So you'll get something similar. But also, I will provide you free of cost some small little power course, which are pretty interesting, just so that you can learn a little bit extra. But also, I will invite you to join my Cialdini community, where in the future, not just started yet, but in the future, as the community grows, I will give you free of cost some tips, some new lessons, some new insights. And lastly, can I ask you for advice? If you scan this code, please can you scan that? And I will give you 2 or 3 minutes to give me a rating of how well did I do today in this 1 hour webinar. I will be absolutely grateful to you. Believe me and trust me, it'll be a delight to get your advice. So please scan that, and on your phone you will get a small little tool. And I would really, really appreciate your comments and your advice to me. And lastly, the fifth tip is start applying whatever you learned today. Complement good behavior. Yeah, complement the desired good behavior. You'll find people will, yeah, you as a boss will make people repeat the good behavior. Cost you nothing. Finally, it is question time. If there are any questions on the chat, I'd love to take that. Priyasha, can you help me with the questions, if any?
Sure, sir, sure. We do not have any questions yet, but
Okay.
I'm actually opening the forum. So anybody, if you have any questions,
Mhm.
we'll be more than happy to unmute you. And anyone, could you just raise your hand if you have any questions?
Anybody with any question, please just raise your hand so we can answer you.
Okay, I have in chat, I have Mr. V.K. Arora.
Mhm.
Thanks a lot, Venkat sir. It is difficult to rate personally like a personality like you. If you insist, I will rate you 11 out of 10.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. That was a very kind comment of yours. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Sir, hi. Good afternoon, sir. Tushar here, sir.
yes, Tushar.
Sir, do not have any question, but I have attended this session, I guess 1 or 2 times, and every time I find something new to learn. And I'm applying this principle since last, I guess, I may be around 2.5 years, and really getting good results out of this, sir. Like principle of reciprocity, principle of liking, consistency. These are the some of the principles that are getting good results in my professional life. Personally, in personal life, I'm trying to do it, but not very successful at home right now. But professionally, it is going good, sir.
Thank you so very much, Tushar, for your kind comments.
Thanks, sir.
One of the things I would like to share is that we have been engaged by a very large company, corporate entity. The L&D department has given us a contract to train a 1 day training on this 7 principles to the senior most management, and they will have 4 sessions of that in different parts of India. Yeah, so it's a corporate entity. Second is they also have 2 day sessions for their general manager and below level of managers. and they expect to have 6 of those sessions, again, around India. So you can imagine that a company who's aware of these Cialdini principles is engaging with us to have their people trained. And they're talking about, when they talk about top managers for the whole day, we're talking about the senior-most people in that, VPs, directors, executive directors, managing directors, and so on, CEOs. They will be attending these sessions. So obviously, there is some good somewhere. People have heard of this, but of course, it's not so extensively known yet. Okay, with that, thank you very much for your attention. I enjoyed speaking to you today. If you have any questions further, uh, uh, please reach out to us. We'll be more than glad to provide you the relevant answers. So thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you so
Bye
much,
bye.
everyone.